My name is Luke Poyant, and I live in Hyannis. Yes, I mean, I remember the 200th, 300th anniversary of the town when we did burying of a time capsule at the 5th grade school. And when the school was sold to the present St. John Paul's, the time capsule had to be picked up and taken to the high school where it now lays, and it will be coming up in whenever the 50 years are until the time that we did. But the celebrations that went along with that involved the children in such a way that they really took part in it, and it was absolutely unbelievable. Everything that was buried was made by children, and it was, but there are many events that went on. There were parades, there were all kinds of things that went along with that. And it was my first time that I had been to a celebration of birth of a town. And so it was very meaningful to me and to the students that we had at the time. And it seemed to permeate the entire Barnstable school system. My first job, first of all, my first job was I was a handwriting supervisor. I started teaching in Marshfield, Mass. in 1959. I taught there for 3 years, and then we had a number of children that we added to our family, and I needed to get a little bit better job, so I went to work for the Reinhardt Handwriting Company out of Barnstable in the town of Waltham. I traveled all of New England teaching teachers how to teach handwriting. And then I did that for 10 years, and at the end of the 10 years, there was nothing more to learn. And so I wanted to come back to teaching, and I was lucky to have had the town of Barnstable as part of my area when I was teaching handwriting, and I knew that was the place that I wanted to come back to. And I don't know if it was foolish or what it was, but this is the only place that I applied to for a job. And Dave Crosby talked to me, and Bill Gick was the one that actually did the interviewing at that time, and talked to me about coming to work with him, because I used to visit his school when he was in Falmouth, and he was in Falmouth at the little, I can't remember quite the name of the school that he was in, but anyway, he came back and talked to me into coming into Centerville, and I love the community. And I love the teaching staff that they had. I liked the school. I liked him. Everything was a plus. So that's where I started my teaching career in Barnstable, and it was the best 10 years that I had ever spent, was when I was in Centerville School. Well, the only thing, what was happening is that there was going to have to be a reduction in the staff at Centerville. And I got the idea in my mind that I didn't want somebody to choose where I went. If I was going to have to move, if there was going to have to be movement, I wanted to make the decision. So I made the decision to go to the 5th grade school, or applied to the 5th grade school, and they accepted me. The 5th grade school was very nice at that time. It was a very comfortable location. And I had some outstanding principals. Peter Nagornik was one of them. And then Mr. Lindbergh, Charles Lindbergh, whom I really thought an awful lot of. So those years were very good years. Oh my God, yes, there are students. You know, the nice part about this is, because as you probably know, I wasn't the easiest teacher to get along with in my career. And today, as we go out, as I go out in the community, many students that I was not easy on are the ones that will come up and say thank you, and I'm glad to have had you, and you'd made this difference. Robert Maffey, who runs the Maffey Landscaping, came up to me and he said, you know, if it hadn't been for you, I probably wouldn't have been successful. Wow, does that feel good? And we need to hear that more and more. And there are so many people that do that. And I have had the privilege of also officiating at marriages of my former students, which is kind of the frosting on the cake. Well, being at the right place at the right time is sometimes very important. And I had a friend of mine that was offered the position of Justice of the Peace for the town of Barnstable, because it's an appointed position by the governor. And she said she really didn't want it, but she thought it would be something that I would enjoy. Well, it was the farthest thing from my mind, but she talked and talked and talked, and so I said, I'll give it a try. So in 1992, I was appointed a Justice of the Peace for the town of Barnstable. And the first year, I think I did probably 8 weddings. And the first wedding that I did was a fellow teacher that I taught with at the particular time. And then it began to grow, and I did 40 and then 50. And as the time went by, somebody told me that I should go into getting a website. So I went for a website. The first year that I got a website, I went from about 40 weddings to 159. And I have been doing it since 1992, so that's 22 years. And I just completed last night, as I told you before, my 1,735th wedding. All different kinds of people. Well, the lucky thing living on Cape Cod is the fact that, and I am affiliated with various of the wedding sites on Cape Cod. So I do weddings from all over the world. I do weddings from a couple from Australia a couple of years back. I've done them from a great number from the Baltic countries, Romania and all of those. And they come down to get married, and it's wonderful. England, I do a lot of weddings from England, all done by email, which is something that would not have been. Internet has made a great difference in how we deal with people. And so it opened up a lot of doors for me. And very often they invite you back and they would like you to go visit. And I haven't had the chance to do that. But it is quite outstanding, and you meet wonderful people. And it's at the happy time of their lives, so for the most part, they're very receptive to what you offer them. And it's been a fun kind of thing to do. And I would like to at least do 1,800 before I quit. My commission runs out in 2019, which will make me a little bit aged at that time. And I don't know whether I'll want to continue, but it's still nice to think that I can do that. Oh, my 3 famous uncles. You're talking about Jean, Clovis, and Rene. Right. Okay. Well, they were kind of linked together because these were the 3 younger brothers. My father was the oldest member of the family and remained on the farm in Acushnet, Massachusetts, where I was born. And others went to Wareham in Onset. But Rainey came down and started a bakery. He originally started a bakery in New Bedford at Luntz Corner. Do you remember Luntz Corner? And so he started a bakery there and was not successful. But he came down to Hyannis and started the Cape Cod Bakery on Main Street in Hyannis. And you worked for him, didn't you? You did. Okay, and so Rainey was a good baker. He had another brother, Clovis, who was also a good baker. But they had a brother that was, I don't know quite how to describe Napoleon, Jean Poyant. But anyway, he had to be the most creative baker out of the 3 of them, and he was unbelievable. He left the bakery in Hyannis here and went to Provincetown, became the town crier and everything else, and stuck his neck into all kinds of things and got in trouble sometimes and did well. But he was very successful. He at one time owned the bakery, Jean's Pastry Shop. He owned Cafe Poyant, and he owned the theater in the back of it. And then on the other end of the property was their home. So they owned from Commercial Street to Bradford Street, right facing the town hall in Provincetown. So he would sit out there, and greet the people as they came along. And so that was part of his deal. But his wife was a very good businesswoman, thank goodness. And she managed to make sure that they lived very well and they retired well to Naples, Florida. They retired to. And so, and I was his nephew, and so as a result of it, I had to go back and forth and take care of a lot of his goings on because she died first, unfortunately, in 1998, and he died in 1999. Rainey Poyant was unbelievable because this man decided that he was going to begin selling real estate and did not have any background. Today, he would not have been able to do what he's done, because of the fact that you'd have to have education, you'd have to have licenses and so forth, that the state did not require at the time. So he started his real estate business in the basement of the bakery and became very, very successful, and partly and mostly, I would say, because of personality. I mean, this guy could sweet talk anybody about anything, and he remained that way for most of his life. As he got older, he got sick and things kind of changed. But he was the right person for the right time, because Poyant Real Estate at one point was really the biggest one in the town of Barnstable. Today, Marcel, his son, lives off property management in various shopping centers that they have, and so and it's all on Rainey's back because of the fact that he was so fantastic. Clovis was very quiet, just the opposite of Rainey, and so as a result of it, and Rene is what they call it here. In French, it's René, as you know, and so Clovis, just went along and did his thing. And as a result of it, his wife ran a rooming house on Winter Street, and she, really did a great job running that. And in the meantime, he would run the bakery. And then she became very, very ill with cancer, and she died very young. But I remember the one time they wanted a new car. And she was sending him out to buy a new Chevrolet, and I can remember the car that very carefully and everything else. And she sent him out with dollar bills for the entire, he never was so embarrassed in all his life. He had to go to the automobile dealer and buy this car cash with the dollar bills that she gave him. And she must have had $2,000 or $3,000 in bills at that time, but that's a story that he told many times after. He married a second wife, and they lived together until she passed away. And then he passed away at the nice age of 85 years old. He has two daughters. Two of them live in Sandwich. And then Jean never had any children. So I became more or less the surrogate child, I guess. And we were very close in the fact. And his wife was such a sweetheart, and she and my wife really hit it off, and so it was a nice relationship. How many children? Well, in other words, I have 4 children, and Barnstable and Hyannis has been very kind to my children, because my oldest son is the manager of of Highline's workings, and I'm not quite sure. We just got another title, and I'm not quite sure what the title is. But I've had daughters that worked there, and one daughter met a captain, and she married the captain, and my son married the secretary of Dick Scudder's secretary, Jane, whom we love very much. And then my youngest son got his captain's license and did work down there. Lynn worked as the head of the ticket office for goodness, I didn't realize 17 years. And then she went to work for the Chamber of Commerce. And then after working for the Chamber of Commerce, she came to work for the town. So Barnstable has been very helpful to us and been very good to us. And so the younger child, my youngest son, my daughter that married the captain, he works for J. Cashman Company, and he's a vice president and project manager for, he was reclaiming the Hudson River project in New York. First recently finished dredging New Bedford Harbor and with PCBs, and now he's going off to Connecticut to do another project. So he's being sent all over the place. We never know where they live. They have a farm in Rochester, Massachusetts, which is our place that we get together on Thanksgiving, and there were 26 of us this past Thanksgiving. We have a football game, and it's a great time to have. My youngest son lives in Orleans. He works for a development company, and I should know the name, and it's slipping But anyway, he has 3 children. My oldest grandson is going to be going to college this year, which I can't believe. My youngest grandchild is 13. We had our oldest granddaughter that got married this summer, and she lives in Deer Isle, Maine. And we all went up for the wedding, and it was a fine time, So that's where my kids live now. But I have one granddaughter who is graduate from Emerson College, and she is living in Los Angeles, and she's trying to break into journalism. And then I have another one that's a twin of hers, who has been accepted at Mass General, and she's going to be a nurse practitioner. And she starts in January, and it will be a 2-year course. And then, so the kids are moving out. And then I've got one granddaughter that works for Meditech, and she travels the country, displaying the effects of what Meditech's materials can do. So we're branching out, and there's a loss of what I remember as a small town, and there's a small town when I moved to Hyannis some years ago. I remember the horse trails in back of my house and everything else, where the Kennedy children learned to ride horses, and then even sail boats out of there with John Lenahan teaching them. So, it's changed now, and I don't know if it's changed for the better in the fact of congestion, So what more can I say? But I love Hyannis. I got started in politics because my father was elected selectman in the town of Acushnet, where I was born. And I kind of liked the goings-on of running a campaign and dealing with what a campaign was all about. So when I came down here, I got involved with John Klim. I was John Klim's first campaign manager when he ran for selectman against Mary Montagna. And so, but what I really enjoyed about politics was the campaign, because the campaigns that we had in those days were fun campaigns. We had a good time. It wasn't like it is today, where we don't run on what we're all about. We run on trying to discredit the person that we're running against. And we didn't have that at that time. And so it was a fun kind of a thing to do. And I enjoyed it, and we were very successful with John, in other words, he ran from that, and then he went for a representative. And so from there, we had a charter commission in town that changed the form of government. And the part that I lived with the change, and I accepted it for a period of time, until I realized that I have no longer any power over the government that exists in the town of Barnstable. I was brought up, and I graduated from Fairhaven High School some 60 years ago. I hate to tell you that. And we had civics courses, and we were taught the importance of elections, the importance of the branches of government, and what it was all about, and what a privilege it was to vote. And we have a general apathy that's gone all over the country. It isn't only in Barnstable, but Barnstable has exacerbated the problem by, I only can vote for one representative on the council. So I really can't change anything about the government. We have the council appoints a town manager who is not answerable to me, but is answerable to them, and I can only control one of them. So I have lost my ability to be a citizen that is in charge of my government, which I had always had in the past. So it has bothered me a great deal, so I tried to make changes to that. And last time we were almost successful, very close to being successful. In other words, I would like to see an elected mayor, simply because of the fact that he should be the one that sets up the agenda for the town, supported by the council and backed up by the council. I can't see this stuff of coming and voting for a single councilor. We should have councilors at large. We can have area councilors beside that, but there's got to be a change if we're ever going to bring the voter back to the voting box, where the power really lies. Oh my gosh! I mean, yeah, really, my grandchildren. If the town and things are beginning to happen. Bridgewater is opening a college down here, which is absolutely unbelievable to me. Which I think is going to keep kids here rather than send them away. I think if they can make their lives college-wise here and then become adapted to the environment that they're living in, they will be more apt to stay. And so Cape Cod Community College has done a good job with that. Is it Suffolk that's also bringing, so the fact that we're bringing education here where they don't have to leave the community to become part of it, and I think it's much more economical for them. I think I've got granddaughters that have gone to schools that they're $40,000 a year, and that's on the cheap side. So I mean to say, and I worry about that because I know that some of my granddaughters are coming out of school, and it's only granddaughters that we've had graduate so far, that are going to end up with $100,000 worth of debt. And that's a mortgage, and that's more than a mortgage. And so I have concerns about that. The thing that I've enjoyed is that I made my life in Hyannis and Barnstable, Hyannis primarily. And the fact is that I've been able to live a lifestyle that's very comfortable and be very happy to. And I'm afraid that my grandchildren are not going to have that chance. They're not going to have the chance that I had. Luke Poyant, Hyannis, Mass.